So hi, I'm Steve Hassan, and I am so excited to have Sarah Edmondson on with me from Vancouver, Canada. Sarah,
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is
thank you. This is so long overdue. I feel a little guilty because your book Scarred came out a while ago, and I wanted to help you get the word out about it. And I just want to say I just so admire you and respect you for your courage. When I saw the New York Times front page article with the picture,
no,
I was like, oh my God. And this was just in the very, Me Too movement period where the Times was willing to go and do this story. And of course, Weinstein has been found guilty. So that's a nice piece of historical synchronicity.
yes.
But anyway, Sarah, I note a lot about NXIVM, as you know, horrible group. But this is an interview for you because I really feel, you know me, that I think former members of the experts, they were there, they experienced it, and when they do their homework, they're the best people to explain to the rest of the planet what the hell happened to us. And the thing that generated this title, if with your permission, I'd just like to just read this for those who may not know. NXIVM, Keith Raniere is in jail, convicted of 7 counts of racketeering, conspiracy, trafficking, involuntary servitude, and there was January 30th. The announcement of a 200-page lawsuit, civil lawsuit, on behalf of victims of NXIVM against the estate, I guess, of Raniere and Bronfman, etc. It says on the back, the shocking and subversive memoir of a 12-year NXIVM member turned whistleblower, I'm going to cry, inspiring true story of abuse, escape, and redemption. Quote, Master, would you brand me? It would be an honor. From the second I climb onto the table, acutely aware that I am lying in the sweat of my sisters, I will have blocked that out. Oh my God, I just heard a noise. Is that your computer or mine?
I don't know, but I'm going to just shut everything right now.
I'm double checking. Mine's turned off, so it's yours. Okay, back to, I will have blocked that out. Lying there completely naked, I am at my most vulnerable, but determined to prove my strength. I try to keep my legs closed as my body wills itself to protect my most private area, both to avoid moving and to keep my body from revealing how vulnerable I feel. I tell myself, I am a warrior. I birthed the human. I can handle pain. But nothing could have ever prepared me for the feel of this fire on my skin.
Yeah.
So tell us what you want to tell the listener about NXIVM. And you're a bright, educated, intelligent, married woman with kids, successful actress, playwright. How did this happen, and what do you want to say?
Well, first of all, I have to tell you that when I first read your book, back to you for a minute, and you described your background, I really resonated with you because I feel like we were raised in a similar fashion, Jewish background, educated parents, loving environment. And I felt a real kinship with you right away and was really happy to hear and to read the template. Ironically, I don't know if I told you this, but when I first got out, the Mark Vicente and Bonnie, his wife, gave me a list of resources, and Freedom of Mind is on that resource. And
didn't Mark recruit you into the group?
Mark brought me in, yeah. And he's also one of the, him and I talking freely for the first time is how I woke up. So he got me in, got me out. And I was
for Mark.
Yeah.
To you, dude.
Yeah, Mark and I have, it's, so that's a whole separate conversation, but he suggested I read this, and I was escaping the East Coast, and I downloaded it on my Kindle, And I just read the first chapter even, and I was like, oh my God, freedom of mind totally solidified. Okay, I've been in a cult, and it was just so helpful. And then I ended up, deprogramming and talking to you briefly and reading some of your resources, but I didn't actually read Combating Cult Mind Control until after I had written Scarred.
I see.
And when I read it, I was like, wow, I wish I read it first, because I could have pinpointed specifically things that were done, because I knew at this point when I wrote the book that I had been under undue influence from brainwash, but I didn't understand specifically how it had happened.
Yeah.
In terms of like being in a classroom and the repetition and the lack of sleep and all. I mean, there's certain things I was aware of, but I didn't understand the methodology specifically.
Right. And actually Combating was meant to be read first, and then Freedom of Mind was like how to help other people get out. But Mark read that first, and I think he blogged about it, which is,
right.
Fine.
I read it backwards.
But it's okay. You're out. That's the important thing. And I'm so glad it did help you.
Yes.
I do want to just jump in, if I may, Sarah.
Sure.
I'm going to get to you.
Yeah.
But as you read chapter 2 of Combating, I talked about once I was deprogrammed, learning about neuro-linguistic programming in 1980, and even moving to Santa Cruz to be with the founders of it, because I wanted to understand covert hypnotic techniques, which I was clear the Moonies did that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was trained but as I learned more and more, it became so obvious this was an amoral system, which was based on do whatever works. And that completely was dependent on your ethics. And for me, I was horrified that they were teaching people how to steal money from people or how to get sex out of people. And so I wanted nothing to do with NLP. And Nancy Salzman, the president of NXIVM, was trained by one of Richard Bandler's top people, Todd, to do NLP, who taught Keith Raniere. So in my opinion, the whole thing was based around using covert hypnotic techniques.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I don't know for sure, but from what I understand, Keith learned other similar techniques in terms of hypnosis, and even specific things like touching people in a certain way and doing plants, and which I'm not sure if that's part of NLP.
It is. It's called anchoring.
Oh, anchoring. Okay, right.
Yeah, but he also studied Scientology in detail, and Hubbard was a hypnotist before NLP, but was a hypnotist. And so, and there are actually things that I've done to teach about the specific techniques of hypnosis that Scientology uses in their programming.
So was it totally crazy for you, being an expert as you are, to hear this story and see the template? Like, it's just textbook, right? Keith, everything he did in terms of the mind control and the physical control and your bite model, it follows it to a T.
Yeah, and I've worked with ex-members who I can't talk about, but yes. And of course, Keith was doing MLM cult stuff, Consumers Byline, before he morphed this after 20 attorneys general shut him down and made him promise never to do an MLM again. He did an MLM again, only it was a coaching MLM, right?
Right.
But what's exciting for me, and I thought we would get to this later in this interview, but I'll just say it. What's exciting for me is that, brainwashing and mind control is not a legal concept.
Yes.
Like, it's mentioned a lot in parental alienation cases, and the concept of undue influence is 500 years old, but it's more about ripping people off of their property. And instead of giving your property to your children and the rightful heirs, somebody comes in and tricks and has people changing their wills. But with the Raniere decision, the way the prosecution did this, it created a landmark alternative way to go after cult leaders and mind controllers. And the term is trafficking, which is fraud, force, and coercion. Fraud, force, and coercion is mind control. It's just another term for it.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about what a precedent-setting case this is, and the fact that Keith is still in jail, and of course now the civil lawsuit is happening, and we hope that there will be justice done, and
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I am anxious for the sentencing, because that will be a closure for me. And knowing how brilliant, and I say that, with quotes, I do think he's a highly intelligent man who's used his intelligence unethically. But I'm always afraid that he's going to find some loophole to sneak out of this and get away with this somehow. So that still lingers for me.
Well, in this corrupt administration and the corrupt legal system and attorney general, as I've written in my latest book on the cult of Trump, makes me worried too for justice.
Yeah. So until that's done, it's still out there as a looming threat. But the civil case, and
it's not a threat. It may be a disappointment, but
disappointment. That's true. Because the world knows now.
He's in jail.
However, and maybe you can speak to this as the expert, there's still about 20 people that we know of that are loyal to him still. And
let's get them out.
Well, but can we start? I cannot let this go. My husband's like, you have to let them go. They're sick. They've drank the Kool-Aid. You can't get them out. And I said, if I can wake up, if Mark Vicente can wake up, if Barbara Boucher can wake up, people who are as devoted as anyone can wake up, anyone can wake up. And I still hold out for this. And
we have similar mindsets, because I was as fanatical as anyone in the Moonies. Moon held me up as the model member to follow, because I was so devout and so into it. I was, let's make the world a paradise. Yeah, let's fix everything. Yeah.
We were the poster children.
If I could get out, anyone can get out. And that's why people say, how do you do this, Steve? How do you work with people who are in 30 years and are total fanatics? It's like, I know the mindset. It'll take time, but with the right combination locks.
Yeah.
And ultimately, people get themselves out, is what I've learned.
I have dreams specifically about one person, Nikki, who's still in, and somebody that I brought in. And I hold that as I still feel guilty about that, even though she made different choices and she moved there and she did things that I never did. But I have a dream. I've probably had it 30 times now over the past 2 years. In my dream, we're together and she's woken up. And we're laughing about how we used to be in a cult, and it's all good. It's like we're together
Let's
again.
make it a reality. Honestly, it took me, unfortunately, because I recruited over 13 devout, like immediate disciples into the Moonies, and I tried to get them out. It took years and years and years. I approached them and everything. They all left eventually, but that was before the internet and everything.
Right.
With the internet, I'd be telling you to make a website for her where you're posting warm messages to her. And if she has access to the internet, at some point, she's going to start reading.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I do.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So what should we tell about your story that is going to have the biggest impact? Because I really want people to use NXIVM as a case example of a modern day mind control cult.
Absolutely. Well, I think that, and I do believe my objective is having positive effects as people reach out to me. I'm sure they do with you every day. Having read the book or listened to it on Audible or listened to the podcast about it, and they're going, oh my God, I'm in another group, or I'm in another relationship, or I'm in this business and this is happening to me. And I didn't know it was happening to me, and I need to leave. And thank you for showing me that this
Doesn't that feel great?
It feels amazing. It is so affirming, because, to be totally honest, writing the book was very stressful, cathartic, but also stressful. And then talking about it afterwards, doing press, was another, like a wave of PTSD. It almost broke me. And I thought that I was healed and I was past it.
Shouldn't be having PTSD anymore, dear.
I didn't think I didn't think that I should be either, but it was partly the lack of sleep. I had a 6-month-old, and I got stressed, and then I didn't have.
That'll do it. So
Yeah,
you need to sleep.
I need to sleep. So it was the lack of sleep more so even than the interviews.
Uh-huh.
But those two things together, I feel like I almost had a nervous breakdown in the fall after the book came out, and then I had to retreat and just isolate and like heal, and I feel so much stronger and so much better and all those things. But to your point, when I get these messages, I feel like it was all worth it because I can help people, and I know that you and I have that same. I hate to use this word because it sounds so NXIVM. My highest value is a term. Like, what's your highest value? My most important priority in my life is that, and so it was worth it. And I
By the
feel
way,
like
you need to reclaim good concepts,
yes,
like clean them off from the cult. Sometimes you need to
yeah,
actually change the words.
yes. I'd like their help in that.
But don't let anything from Raniere dictate any of your behaviors anymore, because you're
For
free.
sure. Yeah, I am free. And
Yeah.
sometimes when I find a tool that I liked, like what's your values? Keith didn't create that. Keith didn't come up with the
You
concept of
stole it.
knowing what you're about. Yeah, he stole it. So what I have had to have done, and maybe you can guide me here a little bit, is take out all the concepts that I like and figure out where they came from originally.
That's a piece of it. That's a piece of it. I'll tell you, if you don't
Okay.
mind, I'll
Oh,
do a
please.
therapeutic technique,
I
even
would love
though
it.
I'm not licensed in Canada.
Please
But
do.
I'm just going to explain the technique and you're going to do it on yourself.
Sure.
Okay, so go back in your memory to the moment when you first heard him talk about highest value,
It was
highest values, or
probably
when you
actually
first
Nancy.
when you first heard
Yeah,
that concept in NXIVM.
highest values. Probably my first 5 day of your highest values. Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember who used the term?
Probably Susan. She was
Okay.
our head trainer. Hmm.
Okay, I'm going to explain the technique. I'm not going to do it. Okay,
Okay.
and you don't need to do it now. You can do it after the
Okay.
interview. But this is the technique for self-healing, because mind control is a dissociative disorder,
Hmm.
right? Where the cult identity is implanted and suppresses your real self, right?
Right.
Then
Hmm.
you're out of the cult and now you have the cult identity,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
So what you want to do is you go, now that you're educated about cults and mind control, now that you know that Keith is not the smartest man on earth, he lied about it, he's not
Yeah.
a martial arts expert, he lied about it, on and on and on.
Mhm.
You go back in your mind to a thing, like we're picking something highest values, right? You go back into yourself, hear the highest values used, but knowing what you know now, what would you want to say back?
Hmm. Back to the head trainer or to myself?
Back in
Oh,
reality. So let me give
oh,
you an example. I'm going
sure.
to give you a Mooney example.
Yeah.
This was something that plagued me for about 4 years after I got deprogrammed from the Moonies. Okay. It was an actual experience I had with Moon, with a group of leaders, and he extemporaneously, which means off the cuff,
Yeah.
said, when we take power in America, we're going to amend the Constitution and make it a capital offense for people to have sexual relations with people outside the church. If people can't control their sexual desires, we'll be doing them a favor by taking their physical bodies away and sending them to the spirit world. And Steve, in 1975, said, yes, Father. Now, what he was saying is, we're going to kill people in mass genocide, is what he was actually saying, if
Right.
people are not following the Moonies. And it plagued me, being a Jew educated about the
Right.
Holocaust. And I had to go back in my mind to that room when he said it. And instead of saying, yes, Father, I said, are you a maniac? You're worse than Hitler. You're going to kill people if they don't agree. I'm out of this frickin' cult. Come on, everybody, let's leave. And I saw myself walk out the door.
Okay, I have a few moments, not quite as extreme as that in terms of genocide, but moments where I was like, "What in the actual,
But
specifically.
you're going into your younger you,
Yeah.
who's
And
indoctrinated, putting your now consciousness into
right.
her. Because if you knew then what you know now, you never would have stayed.
No, of course. Yeah.
So
Okay.
you want to, and you're an actress, so you should be
Yeah,
able to
it's
do this
easy.
really easy. You go back and you redo your personal narrative.
All right. I promise I'll do it.
It's so liberating.
Mhm.
There shouldn't be any residual PTSD triggers if you do it systematically.
Okay.
That's what I do with my clients, and they get better.
You know what? I have to admit, I'm not totally, I'm not totally healed. I still have work to do. And most of it is around interpersonal stuff with people, and it's less cult related and more, yeah, just challenges with people as an effect of the things that happened in NXIVM. And it's okay. I have a therapist. I'm still reading. I think I'm still deprogramming to a certain degree.
So all I can say is you're not alone, and you will get stronger and clearer and better and better. And the more you learn about other cults and mind control, the more the parallels become really obvious.
Yes.
But also being in your body and having a good life and being a good wife and mother and, doing your thing
That's healing for me.
is very healing, because you want to be in the present, in your body, locus of control, internal.
Yeah. Oh, that's since the book launched and focusing really going back internally, and just trying to be normal. Going to farmers markets and making Saturday pancakes and starting new routines, because as you know, for so many years in the cult, it was such a rigid routine of travel and lack of sleep and never having time for myself.
Yeah.
Because even saying like I need time for myself, we'd get in trouble for that, because they say, well, isn't doing NXIVM and doing these workshops, isn't that for you? How is that not
No,
for you?
it's not. It's a
Yeah,
freaking cult.
exactly.
And I don't appreciate covert hypnotic techniques being used on me to disconnect me from my critical thinking, because I'm an intelligent person.
Yes. I'll put that back into my
For
dialogue.
example,
For example.
but that's me. That you need to come up with your words and your constructions unique for you, Sarah.
I'm
But
going to do that.
if I might,
Yes.
what do you most want to explain to people to motivate them? Because I want them to listen to it on Audible. I want them to read this book.
I guess I want people to see the template for how this happens to people. And if they feel like they were the type of person would say that would never happen to me, or, that's just for stupid people or naive people or broken
That's
people.
everybody, by the way.
Right.
Everyone thinks they're invulnerable, and it's only weak, stupid,
Right.
uneducated, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so what you just touched on is a huge thing, that anyone listening to this, if you think you're too smart to be lied to and believe a lie, or you're too smart to fall in love with someone who is not a healthy person, or you think you're too smart to take a job in a dysfunctional company,
Right.
think again.
Exactly.
Join the human race.
Join the human race and learn about this, either for yourself or people that you love, and see how it happens, and
Yep.
understand it and have compassion for it.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So you spent 12 years
12 years, different
recruiting,
levels,
indoctrinating, giving over tons of money.
tons of money. And I think the thing that saved me ultimately, and how I was able to wake up when I did, is that I never moved to Albany. I never moved to the mothership. And, in retrospect, and it's one of the things I really got from writing the book, is that in many ways, in terms of my cult identity was very obedient. I was the good girl, I was a poster child, as were you. But inside, I kept a big chunk of my former identity. And in many ways, that part of me was not so obedient. So I would say, yes, I'll do that, no problem. But I didn't. Like, there was all sorts of things we were supposed to do. And I kind of, I did it for a while. And then after a certain point, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like entering data about things and checking in on certain things, or saying you're supposed to do all these different disciplines and activities and exercises. And
Right.
it was too time consuming. So towards the end, I stopped doing those things, but I said that I was doing it. And in many ways, I kept the good parts of it. In other words, the stolen techniques that Keith took from other modalities that worked for me in my life. And I taught those in Vancouver in a very insular way, and, kept my ties to Albany, but I didn't ever really fully let myself completely go to the leader.
Yeah, and that's congruent with my experience and my research of 40 plus years, is that mind control doesn't take all of you over, even if you're born into a cult. People
Really?
report having like, I heard that and I didn't agree. I couldn't say anything because I'd get spanked or I'd be punished, but and then they run away when they're 15 or 16, right, as soon as they know there's a place to run to. And that's why I have hope for Nikki and anybody else that's in a mind controlling situation, that dissonance between their authentic self and their cult programming starts leaking through and starts breaking through. And one of the things that will speed that up is quality interactions with outsiders who are loving, compassionate, respectful.
Yes.
The
Yeah,
more
I know
contact, the better.
Nikki won't speak with me, but I've encouraged people, we have many mutual friends, just to keep reaching out to her and, letting her know that they're there for her. And, she hates
exactly.
me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and if you read Freedom of Mind, phobia indoctrination is the universal mind control technique, and doing the 3-step phobia intervention.
Remind me, because that was a couple of years
ago. Chapter 10 of Freedom of Mind is a 3-step thing that somebody who has access to her can do. Not about Keith, not about NXIVM, but just explaining what is the structure of a phobia, a difference between a legitimate fear and an irrational fear, the structure of the phobia, which is having a negative image and negative self-talk and holding your breath or hyperventilating shallowly is how you have a panic attack, and how to cure it. And then talking about how other cults put phobias in and how ridiculous those are. And then, like, what do you think happens when you leave, your group? Do you think it's possible to leave and be happy and fulfilled? If not, why not? And how is that different from all the other cults that put phobias in? And why not meet with some ex-members and check them out for yourself? Like,
how they're doing.
You're intelligent, have an experience and check them out for yourself. You never know. Might be a little surprised.
So what would you say to the people? So there's a bunch of people who remain in, who say, Keith is ahead of his time. He was trying to help women, and he's the world was just not ready for his genius. What do you say?
I would say, well, am I speaking as Steve or talking as Sarah? There's a difference.
Oh no,
that's what we were taught to believe, and I believed it for 12 years, and now I've looked at the actual facts and the data, and I have a different point of view about the whole thing.
I'm still trying to reach them. We'll have to have a separate conversation to strategize how to get these people out.
Yeah. The key thing is, if they think people who are in the Sea Org selling, signing a billion-year contract is crazy and stupid, and how could anyone believe Hubbard was a great, nuclear physicist when he got one undergraduate class and got a D in it? If they can see that clearly first, then they're in a position to look at the facts about Keith Raniere. If they can't get it with another cult, don't try to push against how they're indoctrinated. The thing about hypnotic programming is, once you understand hypnosis and you understand the techniques that were put into your head, you can undo them very fast.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, my undoing initially happened very quickly, because all I had to understand was that Keith was not who he said he was. That was my aha. Keith is
That
a
was my
sociopath.
aha
Right.
too. And my deprogramming was, oh, Moon's a liar. Then I can't trust him.
Yeah.
But if the group says that he's God's representative and we teach that God is a God of truth, how could he be a liar? Once that happened, it was like a house of cards in my mind.
Right. Is that greatly satisfying when you work with people and deprogram them and you see, or help them deprogram and you see that happen?
Absolutely. It's the high. Are you
Yeah.
kidding? People say, what does it feel like? I say, have you ever been at a beach and someone is drowning and you jump in
Mm-hmm.
and you bring them back? That's how it feels.
Well, that's greatly inspiring. And back to what your initial question about the book.
Yeah,
No,
please.
that's how I feel when people reach out and say thank you. There's one woman who reached out from the One Touch group, in San Francisco. It's the orgasm group.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Was it One Taste?
One taste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she
Know
was
that one too.
you. Yeah. I mean, it's all so crazy. It's so crazy. And there's so many groups.
Tell me about it. I mean, I wrote Combating in 1988, and people are still finding it. And then they're like, holy mackerel.
I,
How did you know about my group? I say, I didn't know about your group. I was writing about my experience and what I knew at the time, but the template fits.
Temple Fits. Yeah. Have you watched or heard about Tiger King on Netflix?
I've been told to watch it.
You
But
must watch it. You
there's
must watch it. It's the same template, but
I
I want to.
will. My wife and I just watched Unorthodox. That was the one this week. And then I watched Kill Chain on HBO about the voting fraud in the United States and how there are 3 companies that have all the voting machines and they're all easily hackable. And so that I just watched. I watched another one, After Truth, on disinformation that Brian Stelter did, which was excellent.
What's Unorthodox about? I haven't seen that one yet.
It's Deborah, I think it's Deborah Feldman's story. She was raised in the Satmar ultra-Orthodox Jewish cult in Williamsburg, New York, and her exodus to freedom.
Wow.
It's very powerful.
All right. I'll add it to my list.
No, so the thing is, for me and for you, we're just human. We have a limited amount of time. I'm married. I have a kid. I belong to a temple. Like I do other things, not just cults.
Yeah.
And so people are like, you should read this book or that. And I'm like, I know I should, but I only have a certain number of hours a day.
There's reality.
Need to make a living. I'm in a doctoral program because I want to change the legal system if I can to understand undue influence. So I've been part of a forensic think tank for 4 years at Harvard Medical School, getting mentored by some of the top forensic psychiatrists and psychologists and lawyers. And that's why I'm so particularly excited about the case against Raniere, because it opens a door for prosecuting all cult leaders, at least on the labor trafficking side of things, if not the sex trafficking.
Absolutely. No, that was one of the things that our lawyer said right from the beginning, that this was potentially precedent setting. And
it absolutely is. And I read a paper by St. John's Law professor Robin Boyle, who had written the paper before the case came to be, about how we could potentially use trafficking laws to go after cult leaders. So I have no idea if the prosecutors read her paper, but anyway, I'm excited. So this is more about multi-level marketing version of self-improvement. You're going to reach your highest potentiality and make so much money and be so successful. And we know, because we have wealthy, successful people in our group already. And picture of the Dalai Lama, because the Bronfmans gave $1 million to his fund, and other things to create the illusion
Yes.
of this is like the hottest place to be on earth if you want to develop your full potential.
Yep. It was,
Is that in a summary?
that's a really good summary. And,
Who
you know,
want to be the best version of yourself?
yeah, which, great. Uh, but unfortunately, and I don't know if you got to the chapter, I think it was towards the end, Illusion of Hope. Did you get to
I
that part?
haven't yet, but I promise you I will read it in
I'll,
2020.
I believe you, and I'll read yours too. But Illusion of Hope,
Which one? The latest?
that
Or
one I'm going to read. Yes, that's next for me. Yep.
okay.
But that'll be part 2 after we've read each other's books.
Okay.
But I'll just skip ahead. So the last time I saw Keith was the last time I was in Albany, and he had asked me, him and Nancy had asked me, Claire had asked me, because I have a film and TV background and do voiceover, if I could do this little promotional video for a new incentive that they had rolled out. They were always trying to roll out, how do we bring in more people? How do we bring in more people? And, he developed the point system, because most people were not like you and I who can recruit easily. Most people were taking the trainings and they would never grow in the Stripe path because they didn't recruit enough people.
I'm laughing. That's what
I know,
they said
right?
in the Moonies in 1974.
Oh, really?
And Scientology was very much into statistics and points.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also, again, like with all lies, that there's a grain of truth. Keith would say, you're not going to be successful in anything if you can't bring people on board with your ideas. So for him to be successful, you had to keep bringing more people on. And that was a sign of your ability to have I can't even remember these terms anymore.
Yeah, but it's BS is what it
Totally
is.
BS. So totally, absolutely BS. So when people couldn't recruit, it was a sign of their limitations. That
Their
they weren't.
weakness, their lack of faith, their lack of
Yeah,
commitment, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
blah 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 blah. But I was really good at it, and I always have been. Since I was little, with whether it was garage sales or selling candy bars at my school's fundraiser or whatever, I've always been. I was passionate about something. I got people on board. So I was this poster child for the growth.
Yep.
So they had me do this thing where I was talking about this point system, which would motivate the average ESP student to bring people in, and they could earn points like they would on their credit card. And they could use those points to purchase more classes, because everyone was also broke, right? So
All the money you were going to make by taking all the classes.
Right. So basically what Keith rolled out to the field trainers, which I was one of 12 or 13, with field trainers, the people that were in charge of all the sales in the different areas, right?
Yep.
So he rolled this thing out, which was basically you get a percentage of whatever you bring in, and that percentage you can use towards buying stuff. But when you did the math, which math has never been my strong point, I remember thinking, this is not like for the average, if it's to inspire the average student, that they're never going to get enough points because they expire after a year, and you have to and you have to have enough points to pay in full. You can't pay partially. So there was this other field trainer who happens to be one of the brothers who and I won't say their name, 3 brothers, who is a very good field trainer, double Ivy League grad, very smart man. And he did the math faster. And he said, Keith, but wouldn't someone have to sell 17 5 days in a year in order to take a training? Now, I was one of the top salespeople in the whole company, and I would maybe sell 2 or 3 16 days in a year. So now they just had 17 trainings in order to earn a free class. And he put up his hand and questioned Keith, and got in so much trouble for this questioning and undermining him in front of the field trainers. He had to fill out breach forms and was in breach with the company for years after that, and still is, as far as I know, because he never
is his term for what Scientologists call ethics conditions, by the way.
Sure. Okay. I didn't know that. Yeah. I remember when I watched Going
Study
Clear.
Scientology and you'll realize just how much he stole.
Oh no, totally. The first time I watched Going Clear, I wrote a whole list of the parallels and slightly different terms, and some terms the same, like suppressive, right?
Talk to John Atack.
Okay.
You should definitely do an interview with him.
I will.
He's the leading expert on Scientology. He was in it 11 years, OT5, but he's a genius. And he wrote The Piece of Blue Sky, which is the best book about Scientology.
Okay, I'll read that. Well, the introductions you've made for me have been great. Hoyt is a wonderful man, and
We're talking about Hoyt Richards.
oh, Richard,
First
hi,
male
Hoyt.
supermodel. Hey, Hoyt.
I love Hoyt. I lost my train of thought. Oh, right. So anyway, I'm in Nancy's home,
Yep.
shooting this video. Like, hi, how are you? I'm Sarah Edmondson. Do you like points? I love points, and I'm doing this like pitch to try to explain why we should do this. But I'm so tired because I've just been through an 8-day training and I got branded just before that. So I'm like totally messed up. I can't get my thoughts out well. I'm not doing a good job. And I see Keith, and he comes out of Nancy's kitchen and says, the most important thing is that you're in a good state and that your energy is really up, because what we're trying to do is create an illusion of hope.
Illusion. Yep.
And I was like, oh my God, the person who questioned him was right. It's not a doable thing. It's to create the illusion that they could earn and get them to enroll some people, but they never are going to get enough to actually use the points. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the dominoes. It didn't cause me to wake up totally, but I planted it.
Go back to that moment. Yeah. What would you say back to Keith when he said that? Knowing
illusion of hope. Can I swear on this thing?
Yes, you can.
You motherfucker, you asshole, you illusion of hope. That's what it's been for everybody. People aren't here to grow. They're here to serve your purpose. You limp dick motherfucker. That's what I say. Sorry, I think we might have to edit that, but is it okay?
If you want me to edit it, we can bleep it. But the thing is, redoing these traumatic moments where if you did understand mind control is so important to your integration.
I feel it. I feel like, ooh, yeah. And I'd probably punch him and then knee him in the fucking balls too.
Please do. The thing is that this is in your mind, so it's not illegal. You can do it over and over a million different ways until you feel finished.
Yeah.
Right? But I want to also comment, if I may, about Robert Lifton's Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism, and one of his 8 criteria, which is the demand for purity. And it's the setup in mind control cults to always make things not doable.
Right.
In order to make people always feel insufficient and dependent. Mm-hmm. So it's a version of the carrot in front of the donkey who thinks that he's going to get the carrot if he just takes a few more steps, only it's suspended by a pole and he'll never get it. Right? But we're humans and we're fast learners. Once we understand the concept, the key is no one's ever going to do this to me again, under any circumstance. And when I have an interior doubt about something, I'm going to verbalize it. I'm going to reality test it. I'm going to do independent research, because if something is legitimate, it will stand up to scrutiny.
Yeah.
And if it's not, why am I wasting my precious time and energy and attention on this?
Absolutely. Somebody invited me to Landmark shortly after I got out of NXIVM. And I was like...
Which used to be called EST, by the way.
Yes, I did know that.
And then there's LifeSpring, and there's Insight. There are variations of the large group awareness training thing. And my least favorite is Tony Robbins. And there's a Netflix documentary.
I saw that also.
I Am Not Your Guru.
What do you think of that, by the way?
I don't like Tony Robbins.
Do you know that
like him telling a woman who was born in a sex cult, the Children of God, I am not your guru, and then inviting her to work for him.
I know, that was really, that totally rubbed me the wrong way.
Please give me a break. But that's modern day large group awareness trainings where you get, $5,000 from so many people. You get all the people who you've already programmed to work as volunteers for free.
Right.
Who recruit, because if you want to make a difference, you have to bring it out to the world and not just be selfish and do it to yourself. And he's raking in all the money.
I watched that documentary a couple months ago, and I remember my husband and I looked at each other and I was like, he's basically got a well-produced, high production value version of what we did in ESP. Like, we would have a 20-person little event with like a continental breakfast. He had a, 2,000 or 5,000 person event. It was really, and the whole time I was like, oh God, it was, it's so hard. It's gut wrenching to watch these.
It's painful for former members who understand mind control to watch people being manipulated. That said, people bring their own stuff to whatever,
right?
And it can have beneficial impact. Just the notion of making the behavioral change and commitment forces a different neuronal structure that can open doors. But the key is you're doing it. Don't attribute it outside to some external authority figure and such. And if there's any eyes closed visualization exercises, you got to really know who's doing this and what's their training and what's their background, because there's a lot of hypnosis being used unethically, in my opinion. Ideas can be put in people's unconscious without them consciously agreeing to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like that's sort of where I'm at right now in my life. And my main focus is my kids. And like you said earlier, being normal and being present.
Staying healthy too during the COVID crisis, right?
Well, that's the main focus right now. I mean, we're barely even going outside. But in terms of what's next for me, I feel a pull to do something like what you're doing. And at the same time, I'm also thinking maybe it's time for me to close this chapter and move, do something completely different. And I decided that I don't need to decide yet. And that's okay. It's okay. I'm still talking about the book and getting that message out there.
Great.
And
don't you have a documentary in the works?
it's not mine. I'm in it. It's
okay.
When
is that coming out?
We've heard this summer, but I don't know for sure. And that will be on HBO. And the filmmakers that were part of that are, they become close friends in the 2.5 years that we've been shooting. And they've documented some crazy stuff, things I don't even remember that they documented because I was deprogrammed. I was still processing. And
right.
They were with me on the plane when I went to New York to speak with the FBI. They were with me when I, all sorts of moments, but I forgot something I wanted to tell you because you started with the book and showing the branding. I wanted to tell you that in November, I had the brand surgically removed from my body.
Yay.
Yes. So I feel,
actually, Hoyt had told me that. I hope he didn't.
Oh no, it's fine. Yeah, no.
But yes, because that was my first thought when I saw it is what can plastic surgery do?
I spent 2.5 years putting so many oils and scar cream and in many ways I had to keep it on my body for a while, partly as proof because people didn't get it. And when I showed them it sort of helped them drop into the reality of what had happened. And I needed it. And then after I had my second child, I finally got to a plastic surgeon, and it was only through the help of a dear friend of mine who works in the field. And I said, do you know of anyone? And she basically set up the appointment for me, explained everything. And all I had to do was walk in and had the consultation. And I realized that was really what was holding me back, is like having to sit down with someone and tell them what had happened.
Right.
I just couldn't.
Great.
So
the important thing is it's your body and you've taken control back completely.
Yes.
And yes, you've done a book, and I see this as a service to humanity that you were willing to have the picture in the New York Times front page and to put it on a book and to tell that story. But thank God you, took care of it.
I did take care of it and have since helped. As far as I know, one other woman has gone, one of the women I was branded with came up to Vancouver and had the same surgery. And I'm trying to get all the other women, some of whom still won't even speak to me because even though they're out, they still, they stayed in longer than I did. So what they think of me is still tainted by what
they were hypnotized to think you're an evil person.
I'm an evil person.
Right.
Yes.
But once they understand, they're going to get over it. Maybe they'll watch this. Who knows?
I hope so.
They'll do their homework and learn about hypnosis.
Yeah, I just want all of them to have that off their body, and that's,
Well, it's their bodies, so
yeah.
it's up to them.
They,
But
of course, if they want it, I will help them get it off.
I was going
And
to say, if they don't have the money, you could organize a fund and help
it's
them.
already happening. It's already
Great,
happened. There's it's all covered through this very generous philanthropist who wanted to help the women who got branded, and
great.
it's yeah. So they basically they did it. You know, there was this, the symbol was like this, and they took a piece of skin about this big and just cut it out and then sewed it. So there's basically just a line now. Like, looks like a,
Great.
you know, a C-section line.
Great.
And I'm way happier with that.
And it will fade.
It will fade. It's almost already faded, and it's a metaphor for
It is.
a lot of things.
It is. Write a poem about that one,
Okay.
please. Or someone write a poem about that one. It is a great metaphor. So listen, we're going to do this again because there's so many interesting things that we can bring up. I'll be a little more organized. I will have read your book and
I'll have read yours.
Read The Cult of Trump and understand that he really is a malignant narcissist.
Oh, 100%.
And he really is operating like a cult leader, and we can't expect him to behave himself because he is not working off the same normal playbook of, you know, laws and rules,
Ethics or
and
anything.
compassion and kindness and empathy.
Yeah.
Malignant narcissists don't have that. Please, continued health and success. Say hi to Anthony. Kiss your kids over and over. You would do anyway, but it's just so precious. And we're so glad you're free and you're courageous. Thank you so much for speaking out.
Thank you for providing the education for me to wake up.
Yeah, and I thank my parents and the people who deprogrammed me in '76, because I'm just passing it forward or playing it forward, whatever. I'm moving what was done for me outward to a larger group, and we only have 60 million Americans to do this to next.
Okay, great. That's no problem. Totally doable.
Just need to do it to scale, but I have ideas if you know any philanthropists who want to do that.
All right, well, that'll be part 2.
I'm the guy. Pleasure.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.